players on sale for only £9 each. Should we rejoice at that news and rush the stores? I've been hearing from Julian Morris, director of the free market think tank, the International Policy Network, and first, the co-leader of the Green Party, Dr. Derek Wall.
Not entirely. I mean, it's lovely if you get something for £10, but there's a high cost to low prices. There's an environmental cost because instead of repairing and reusing, the incentive is to throw away, and that isn't ecologically sustainable. The other issue is, why is it so low? Partly a loss leader to get people into supermarkets to buy more, but partly because with globalisation, wages are squeezed so low.
What about that, Julian Morris? We might think that £9 is marvellous, and part of us will think it's a bargain, but if we think about the wider costs, maybe we should avoid these sort of things.
I think we should celebrate the reduction in cost of such a wonderful item. It's a boon to all of the people who are producing goods that would go on to DVDs. It's a boon to producers of films. It's also great for the consumer, who's able to get this good at a much lower price, which means that more money will be available to spend on other things. Also, the people producing the DVD players benefit. Yes, they may be earning less than whoever would be producing the DVD if it were manufactured in Britain, but then they are making more money than they would have done had they been farming in the fields. This is a win-win scenario.
I'll let Derek Wall back in a second, but what about one of his points, which was that this contributes to the throwaway society? Instead of fixing things that go wrong, we just discard them.
Certainly there's been a shift from taking your DVD player or TV to the repair shop and spending £25 or £50 or £100 to get it repaired, to buying a replacement which is cheaper. Is that a bad thing? No, because you're able to get the service you want at a lower price. Maybe the people who were previously doing repairs of TVs and DVDs and so on are losing out. But hopefully over time they can shift into other jobs. And in fact, you've seen over the course of history, as new technologies come along, the rates of employment increase because new technologies enable more to be done with fewer resources. More people make more money, and generally the economy does better. We all do better. We have more goods and we live better, longer lives.
Derek Wall, why can't you see what Julian Morris is telling us? It's a win-win situation.
I mean, it's madness. I mean, it's economics as a kind of secular religion. So if you look at the facts, they don't add up. Globalisation has gone too far. Unless you have strong trade unions, wages get pushed down, and that's one of the reasons why this is so cheap. So the workers don't benefit. Free market liberalisation of agriculture, that's one of the reasons why the peasant farmers are in trouble.
On the contrary, Julian Morris is saying these people making these are benefiting because they get more than they would working in the fields, as he put it.
Well, if you look at it, if you marketise everything, if you repress trade unions, if you have complete free markets, wages fall and fall and fall. And also he's missing the environmental point, that if you look at the greenhouse effect, parts per million of carbon dioxide, 420, 100 years ago only 280. The world is warming up. We use 85 million barrels of oil every day. That's not sustainable, and he's not addressing that.
What should people do, Derek Wall, if they do want to buy a DVD player and on the shelf they see one for £9, one for £20, one for £100?
Difficult choice, but what we want to do as the Green Party is bring in information so that people know about the real costs, so that things are easy to recycle and reuse. So consumers can only make a full choice if they have all of the information. What I also look forward to is lots of free downloads, open source, where we can watch a lot of this stuff for free on the internet, which is something that I think Julian should be talking about as well.
I think absolutely. This is great that there's competition out there. There's lots of different technologies that have been developed. But if we'd said 20 years ago, oh, I'm a bit worried about these computer things that are taking up lots of energy, then we wouldn't have today very small computers downloading all sorts of information in the form of bits, which enables you to consume goods without having to go out and buy DVDs and use DVD players. But I think there's a wonderful competition here between the supply of bits downloaded over the internet and through DVDs. Of course, if you're going to continue to be able to supply DVDs, you're going to have to be able to buy the DVD players and the DVDs themselves at lower price, and that competition is beneficial to the consumers.
But Julian Morris, hasn't the world gone mad when the DVD player is cheaper than some of the DVDs that would go into it?
Well, in the past 20 years, 200 million people have been lifted out of poverty. That's a result of those people having benefited from selling goods in international markets. Most of those people are in China and India and other places where there previously were extremely poor, horrible conditions.
Derek Wall's just smiling at that.
I'm smiling at that because you look at things like NHS, you look at things like intervention by governments, and you look at the fact, you look at the economists, you look at all the stats, and you have giant corporations, they've got power, you've got trade unions being crushed, and what happens is, though the world economy is growing, the distribution is being skewed more and more and more.
I mean, one just looks at the facts of the matter.
Well, I've been looking at the facts and you're ignoring them.
Well, in countries where growth has been faster, the rates of poverty reduction have also been faster. China grew at about 10% during the course of the 90s, and the proportion of poor people in China fell by about 8%. Compare that with Uganda, where the economy grew by about 3%, and the proportion of poor fell by about 3% too. And so, as people get wealthier,
is important, though.
Well, if you allow people to get wealthier, then they will become healthier, live longer lives, and I think generally, actually, especially if they're able to be free. I think it's
things like the NHS, which you're critical of, that help there.
Just to finish, Julian Morris, because those arguments are well made, how many of these DVD players are you planning to go out and buy?
I already have a DVD player. So right now, I'm not going to buy a £10 one, but I think that it's a great thing for all of the consumers of Britain who have more choice.
That's Julian Morris, director of the free market think tank, the International Policy Network, in discussion with the co-leader of the Green Party, Dr. Derek Wall.